Coaching Soccer Weekly, episode 230, Going with the Flow. Entertaining, educational, and inspiring soccer content to help make you a more effective coach, player, or soccer parent. Hello, and welcome back to Coaching Soccer Weekly, presented by World Class Coaching. My name is Sega Pravinovich, and this is the podcast devoted to bringing you cutting-edge methods, techniques, and tactics for coaching soccer. It doesn't matter if you're an experienced coach who has been training teams for many years, or if you're new to coaching and working with a team for the very first time. There's something we can all do to take our coaching to the next level. Welcome back to the show. I hope everyone had a really great week. It was Canada Day weekend here, and it was 4th of July as well in the States. So hopefully you had a really good weekend. I know there were some tournaments out there. We do not have a U13 team. So because we don't have a U13 team, I really don't see the value of going into tournaments just to play festivals. The only thing that I could think of would be, to kind of get everyone together and go on a trip. But I don't know. I think that's going to come later on, U13 and above. Then I can probably see the value. Also, we have a really strenuous schedule with the way the league works. They don't give us any breaks. This was the only break for the league. It was Canada Day weekend. So other than that, parents don't have a break. So I think this was a really good way for the parents to go up to cottages, things like that, visit family, and just have a really good long weekend break. And then now we're kind of getting back into it. For me, this is the super busy season. I actually started summer camp. So for me, summer camp has had a huge impact on my life. I started going to summer camp, sleepover camp when I was 12 years old, and ended up being at summer camp, going there for 12 years. So it was just a really important part of who I was. Something that I'm very thankful for was that my coaches understood that for 2 months I was gone because I went to sleepover camp. So for 2 months I wasn't part of the team, but every single one of my coaches understood that. And whenever I finished camp and got back, it was like I was never gone. So I appreciate that, and I always want to keep that in mind for our players. I had a player who went off to France for a couple of months, so things like that are really important to a child's development. It's not your place as a coach, I believe, to cut a player because they're going off and having a childhood. Summer camp really made me, and I'm going to say this again because it really made me who I am today. So I think it's a very important part of development, because what ends up happening is you go away to camp and there really aren't any adults. There are 16, 17, 18-year-olds that are counselors. There's usually, 4 or 5 adults at the camp. So you're not really around adults, and and I think it develops your personality and really allows you the first option in life, especially when you're 12 years old, to be away from your parents for a long period of time. And that was very hard for me. So it really taught me a lot growing up. So I'm really happy to be a part of a day camp here in Canada. It's called Bayview Glen Day Camp. So I'm running their soccer program, and I'm doing it for a half day. The players that I have in that program are all brand new to soccer. I do not have a single player that's a rep player that has played for a team before. I think maybe a couple played for some house leagues here and there, but there are no serious players. So for me, it was a real struggle because I came in, and because this is our first year there, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what the level of play was. I didn't know what athletically the campers are going to be capable of. So going into a situation like that, how do you plan? How do you go in there, and if you come in and they're fantastic players, what do you do? Well, if you come in there and none of them have ever played soccer before, what do you do? What if you have a mix? So going into those situations, you need to, as a coach, have those experiences of multiple levels. And for me, I am so thankful that even forget when I started the academy. Before that, I was able to be in clubs and academies around where I was able to coach the youngest players and I was able to coach the oldest players. So I have seen before I started my academy what it was like to coach every single age group. And that's really important so that when you get into any situation, that's when your creativity comes in and that's when you need to be at your best. And for me, I think one of the biggest blessings was I think it was my third coaching job. I was at a fantastic club here in Toronto, Toronto Skills. I'll give them a shout out. And I was coaching the youngest academy team there. But what really developed me as a coach was we always got the smallest space. Always. A lot of the time, it was a 30 by 30, 20 by 20. It was just really small. And I got comfortable being able to coach in a tight space. And today was the second day of camp. I went in. It was a rainy day, and I just went up to the office, talked to the director, and he said, "Thank you for being so flexible." And that's really, I think, the true mark of a youth coach. If you can be flexible in any situation and be able to still do your thing and get quality sessions, no matter what size you're given, no matter if they put you in a gym, in a classroom, in a giant, beautiful turf field, which we have on outdoor days, it doesn't matter. You should be able to be comfortable in any situation, in any environment. So that to me was really what I started with yesterday. Yesterday I came in and really started from scratch. And I love that. I love being able to problem solve. So that's a little short version of that. I'll talk about what I did with the camp yesterday, what I did today. And I'm really excited to do this because I think it's really needed. I have players ranging from 2015 to 2010. And every single one of these players has never played soccer before. So what do you do? Well, the first thing that I did was I came in with a plan. And the plan was to start off with, I don't have a name for this, so I'm just going to describe it. So essentially, I did a 7x7 square. And whenever I talk measurements, I always talk in steps. I don't talk yards, inches, none of that. Steps, everyone can step. So 7x7. And I put my large orange cones there, and then I put one blue cone in the middle. I had every single player start with a ball, and essentially what I wanted them to do was race around in a circle. Once they do that and get back to their cone, the first player to pass the ball into and hit the blue cone gets 3 points, the second player gets 2 points, and the third player gets 1 point, and the last player doesn't get a point. So I wanted to do that, and I wanted to do that for a multitude of reasons, and here they are. That specific activity works on dribbling, keeping the ball close, going around tight spaces. It works on passing, and it works on understanding. So it's not very simple to understand. It's a simple exercise, but when you explain it once, there's still going to be some players that aren't really going to understand. So what it gave me was a baseline of where every single player was at. I started and I looked to see, okay, can these players pass? Can they keep the ball close? Okay, do they even understand that after they miss, they don't have to do the whole circle, the square again. They have to go around the square again. They can just bring it back, play. I wanted to see who started to kind of cheat a little bit, who went inside the square, all these different things. And I just sat and analyzed. And we did this for about 20 minutes. After that, sent them to a water break. And right away, I understood what level we were at. And from there, I went into the dog game. Went into sit, rollovers, Maradonas, stepovers, everything that I normally do. And it was fantastic. I think they very much, all of them struggled with the very first session with that run around. And then that second session of going into the dog game. Then I did Stuck in the Mud. Then I did Shark Attack. Everything that I would do with my players, they absolutely loved it. Had a lot of fun, lots of laughter, all that kind of stuff, and it was great. And then just the way the day worked out, that's all the time that we had. I did a World Cup, which was essentially 4 teams, and I did a round robin, and that was it. That was the end of the first day. And now I understood exactly where these players were at. I had a full day half day with them, so I could kind of go back, analyze, and see what we were going to do. Today was a very different day. Today it rained all day, and I knew that going in. So I knew that we weren't going to be in the sun. Yesterday was so unbelievably hot, and the players needed a break every 10, 15 minutes. So I knew we were going to be indoors. So for me, when there's no heat as a factor, which means that the players don't get tired as fast, it really screams out one thing. And that thing is 1v1s. So I started off the day, same as last time, with just Shark Attack and the dog game, and again really went into those moves. After that, I went into I partnered them up, and essentially what I did was kind of like a shadow defending thing. So I had one player with the ball, one player in front, and the defender would step forward as the attacking player would do one of the moves. So either it was step over. Maradona was the big one, because I wanted them to understand that as the player is stepping, they got to grab the ball, do their rollovers, and get around them. We also did our rollovers. And what I wanted them to understand with drag, right, the drag, is that we don't drag the ball across, because then the player can throw their foot in, win the ball. We drag it back to create a V to go to the other side. And I thought that went well. Then we had snack, and then it was time. It was time to get into 1v1s. There were 14 of them, and there were various age groups, but they were all the same skill level. So for me, 1v1s, and we did that for about an hour and I think 15 minutes, and that was a lot. I kind of really pushed them to see how far and how they would go. And they did great. I think they absolutely loved it. They loved the competitiveness. I kept score. What I did was, because we had 14, at the end of every round, just to kind of keep them excited, I would read out the top 3 players. And I think that did so much. And what was great is I would read out letter F, and then everyone would clap for letter F who was in first. Letter C, I would clap, and then everyone would clap. So that was really great. Give them a little bit of a break. And by I think it was the 10th round, they were dead. I could see it in their faces. So I said, let's go one more time. Went one more time, the 11th time. Then I read everything out and gave them a 5-10 minute break. And then after that, what I did was I did stretching, which I don't ever do with my players because they're 12 and under. So it was really interesting to kind of see. We did a lot of hip work and hip mobility just to kind of calm them down. And then after that, we went into 2v2s. And again, absolutely loved it. And we did that until the end of the day. At the end of the day, just again, because for the past 2.5 hours, super intense, something that they've never done before, just running like crazy for 2 hours, working hard, battling, really, I think, got their heart rate up. But more importantly, it just got them going. So took them outside to the hallway because we were sharing a gym, had them sit on the wall, and we just did breathing exercises for about 2 minutes just to kind of calm them down. I had them really breathe in for 4 and then out for 4. Then I had them really concentrate on, as they breathe in, getting their belly out. So I really wanted them to have a big belly. And then as they let the air out, I wanted them to make a ha sound. So it was like this really loud ha at the end, and just kind of really grounding them and getting them back to where they were. So that's been kind of 2 days of that, and it's been interesting so far. There's a couple really talented kids that, right from the bat, you could kind of see very athletic. There was one player who had goalie gloves, and he started diving here and there. So he looks like he really wants to pursue that goalkeeper. So, yeah. But overall, a good couple of days. I'm here for 8 weeks. So my schedule is very different than it used to be. Usually in the morning, I have a lot of time to myself now. Got to wake up at 6 and go, go, go. And yeah, so really interesting couple of days, but I'm excited now to get back into training. Andrew Clifton's interview, episode 228, had a really big impact on me. My players, when it comes to 1v1s, fantastic. When it comes to off the ball, they're pretty good. Moving the ball, pretty good. But the one thing in defending, even now, we're getting pretty good at it too. The one thing that we're lacking is consistent shooting. I have great shooters on my teams, but every single player is not a great shooter, and that's an issue. Every single one of my players is a great 1v1 player who comes in and battles no matter what. But I want the identity of our team to continue to grow, and I want gladiator players to be shooters. So I'm really starting to take that seriously. And now in my private sessions, I'm doing that. But tomorrow in the camp, what's really great about the facility that we're using is it's fenced. It's a turf field, absolutely gorgeous and fenced. So tomorrow what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and really work on shooting with these players. So they're kind of going to be my guinea pigs, and I'm going to see how it's going to work. I'm going to give each of them, because if you think of how fences are built, there's usually one pole, then the fence, then the other pole. So that's going to be a net. And I'm going to go through all 14 players, and I'm going to teach them how to shoot. And by the end of the day, I will do everything in my power to get them shooting with power and proper technique. These are players that have never, ever, ever had any formal training. And today, they all did Maradonas. By the end of the day, they could all do them. So I personally believe that tomorrow, if we just go from the beginning till the end, until they get it for at least an hour, 2 hours of shooting, then they will get it, and it'll give me a better understanding of how to teach it. Because what I like to do when I'm approaching a brand new subject that I haven't really taught my academy players is I like to start with the players that don't know anything, essentially, the very, very beginners, and usually that's 5 and 6 year olds. And if I can teach it to a 5 or a 6 year old, I know I can teach it to my academy players because they can pick it up quick. So tomorrow, that's going to be the goal. So what I have planned is exactly what he spoke about. I'm going to have them take off their shoe, take off their sock. We're going to work on hitting it with our bone. We're going to keep working on it. And then I'm going to use the steps of my fake shot, which I've already taught my players, which is stare, point, step beside the ball, donkey kick back. And then when we go through the ball, that's when we use that bone part. And Tom did a great job when he hosted talking about toe down and out, and hitting it through the ball. So we're really going to be working on that tomorrow, and we'll see how it goes. Maybe it'll take one day, maybe it'll take 2-3 days, and we'll just kind of come back to it, 30 minutes here, 30 minutes there. But I'm really excited for it. Unfortunately, where we train, we don't have fences and things like that. So I'm still thinking about how I'm going to do that, but there's no rush. I don't want to just come in and run something that's not, 100% what I know I'm capable of. So I'm going to take my time. I'm going to use the camp as a way to really understand how to teach it properly. And then I'm going to find a way to create that environment that Andrew spoke about. And Andrew gave some great ideas about kind of having 2 cones, 1 player across each other. I might do that. I don't know yet. But the first step is really mastering the teaching part of the game. So super excited for that. There was one more thing that I wanted to talk about recently. I got an Audible, what do you call it, subscription. I'm not selling Audible at all. Don't get me wrong. But it allows me to get 1 book a month, plus there's some free ones that they have. So anyway, I was listening to a really great book. Doesn't matter the book. And one of the stuff they talked about was responsibility. And I just loved the way the author phrased the idea of taking responsibility. And now what I've started doing is at the end of every session, I'm talking about this, especially with my younger players, my 2012 players. The younger the players are, especially in rondos, 1v1s, I see a lot of arguments, and the way that we solve that is, rock, paper, scissors. But what it's showing me is, and even in rondos, it's pretty much consistent. The players that are always kind of arguing and stuff like that, it shows me that they're not willing to take responsibility. For example, our captains never get into arguments. I pick my captains based on who they are, not their soccer skills. It has nothing to do with their soccer skills. So for me, they're just really good people, and they never get in arguments. So the idea of taking responsibility, and I want to share this with you, and I think it's very valuable to talk about this with your players, and it's just a really good idea to. Sorry, it's not a good idea. It's a good way of looking at how to phrase and teach taking responsibility. So here's what I say and what I said to my players. I pick a random player or a coach beside me, and I say, if I blame Johnny for something, then essentially what I'm doing is I'm allowing Johnny to fix the problem. Because if it's not my problem, there's no reason to fix it. So by putting the blame on someone else, you're actually giving them all the power in the situation. And I think that's really powerful, because what I train my players in the 1v1s is to be powerful. And they love being powerful. They love feeling powerful. So the idea of taking all the power and giving it to someone else for them to do something about it, that shouldn't sit right with our players, and it shouldn't sit right with our methodology and just the way that we train in general. So what I tell them is, instead of giving them the opportunity to take power, take responsibility for yourself over the situation. And what that will allow you to do is that'll allow you to take and control it more. So for example, just a random example, let's say, and this is a really interesting example. So this happened. I just moved into a new house in September of last year, and I was backing into the driveway, which I always do now, and I did before. And what I didn't know is that the garage was a little bit broken. So sometimes the garage doesn't go all the way up. And it didn't go all the way up. And I backed in and completely ruined the antenna of my car, because it just kind of hit the top of the garage door, if you can think about it. Went absolutely furious, got it fixed and everything. But now, instead of kind of blaming the house, blaming this, I've taken responsibility for that action. And every single time I back into the house, I always now look at the garage, and it's just become a habit. But what did I do? Instead of kind of blaming the situation and being like, oh my God, this garage door is so bad, blah, blah, blah. No, I took responsibility of the situation, and now it's never going to happen again. The garage still, doesn't do its job and open all the way sometimes, but it doesn't bother me because I'm always looking. So yeah, I could get it fixed, but even if I don't, I know when it's not going all the way up. So just an example of the idea of just kind of taking responsibility in general. And I'm sure you can think of examples for yourself that you can share with your players, examples on the soccer field, whatever that is. So I think it's a really important lesson that we need to teach our players. One of my favorite questions that I've gotten recently, and it wasn't the first time that I got it, is a coach reached out to me and kind of said, aren't you worried that you're kind of sharing everything that you do within the academy and all your one-on-one secrets and rondos and this and that? Aren't you worried someone in your area is going to copy you and do that? And I'm really not. And I think it's, I don't want to speak for Andy or what he does with the Kansas City Legends, but because he shares the same stuff that I do with the 1v1s on the podcast, on his podcast, and a lot more. But the reason that I'm not scared of anyone copying me is, it's one thing to know the 1v1s, understand the 1v1s, but it's a whole other thing to do it consistently and give it enough time in your training sessions for it to have the effect, the positive effect that it has for our players and makes them different. Every single session is the exact same. And I want to repeat this for our players. They come in first 15 minutes, rondos. After that, 1v1s for at least 20 minutes. After that, we go into anything tactical. A lot of the time, we do the half game that I spoke about. But those first 45, 35 minutes are always going to be rondos and 1v1s. And I would even argue that the 1v1 time that I have isn't enough. So there are sessions like today, for example, where we went and gave 30 minutes for 1v1s. So it was 45 minutes of our hour and 15 minutes of rondos and 1v1s. So a lot of, and I've had coaches who have come into our sessions, seen what we do, and then they go back and, then they come back and they reach and they talk to me and they say, Sagav, I can't get what you got at the academy. Of course not. You're not giving enough time. Because a lot of the time we get carried away with, we got to do shooting. We have to work on defending. We have to do this. We have to go into our curriculum. But what I love about the system that we have is the 1v1s and the rondos cover everything. And we do that for at least half the session. And then the rest of it is for anything else, which is usually tactical. So I want you to reflect as a coach and think about your sessions and think about, is what I'm doing with my players really what's going to help them in the long run? Is that even what you need as a coach? If you're a university coach, a high school coach, that may not be what you need. The 1v1s may not help you, especially if you're a high school coach. I know that when I played in high school in Kansas, the season was like a month long, especially here in Canada. The girls play for a month, and that's it. So I'm not going to do 1v1s with the high school girls when I'm coaching, the all-girls team. There's no reason to do it. It doesn't make sense. I'm not there for development purposes. I see them for a month, right? So you really have to reflect about your situation, because I'm not saying my way is the best. I'm not saying my way is even the right way for you. I'm just sharing what I'm doing, and that's really what I want out of this podcast. I'm going to keep sharing what's going on because I'm continuously learning, and I love that. And I hope that, you're continuing to get something from it, and I'm going to do my best to get great people on and keep sharing as we continue our journey. So sorry about that little rant, but I think it's really important to understand where I'm coming from and what my situation is, because it might be different than yours. But please understand that the 1v1s they're not magic. If you do them for 10 minutes, once every 4 sessions, they're not going to do anything. Yeah, they might help you a little bit here and there, but they're not going to have a strong effect on you. In fact, my first 3 years when I opened the academy, all we did was 1v1s. We didn't do any rondos. We didn't do anything else. And we didn't win a single game for 3 years, but I was okay with that. And now those players are now my 2012 players, and now they're playing fantastic. I've also noticed that we are starting to win more games, and I really think that's because of our goalkeeper training. Our goalies are really starting to take shape, and it has a big effect on our games. Before, every single shot would go in the net, and we brought in a company that is a goalkeeping coach company, and they brought in a great coach for us, and he's done a fantastic job with our goalkeepers. So it's something that I didn't really consider, how important it is to have a really great goalie. And our goalkeepers develop in our 1v1s, they develop in our rondos, and then on top of that, they also develop with extra goalkeeper training from great goalkeeping coaches. So my goalkeepers in the 1v1 situations, in the 1v1 games, they're facing 6-7 shots within a minute sometimes, especially when we play in that 2012, because I like to pack that in. They're getting their passing and receiving from our rondos. So they're getting everything. And actually for our younger goalkeepers, they're there an hour early to practice 1v1s as well. They're not goalie for the earlier session, so they're also good 1v1s as well. So they've had a really big effect. This weekend we're playing we have our community games. So that's going to be in the small nets for our 2013 team. So I'm really excited to see how the goalkeeper is going to do there. I think he'll do really well, but we'll find out this weekend. And I will be back, as always, next week. And I'm really excited to get back into the thick of things and get back into the games and report back to you. Thanks for listening to another episode of Coaching Soccer Weekly. It really means a lot that you're supporting the show, whether it's by listening, telling your friend, or leaving a positive review, or even just sending me an email letting me know that you're enjoying the show. All of those little things really make a huge difference, and I want to thank you for supporting the show in any way that you can. Speaking of supporting the show, I want to thank our sponsor, Vio, the amazing way to record your players during the game, be able to watch it back in a professional setting. It's really been a game changer for our academy, so thanks, Theo, for sponsoring the show. Next week, I'll talk about the games that happened this weekend, and again, going through that community soccer weekend thing, and also I'll give you some more insight into the camps. But until next week, enjoy the journey, enjoy the moments, but most importantly, enjoy the...
Hey, thanks for watching all the way to the end, and you can check out more of our videos right here. And if you haven't done so already, I would really appreciate it if you'd hit the like button and the subscribe button.